For 5 years, she worked double shift so he could achieve the dream they both had envisioned. But on the day he finally received his diploma, everything changed. He started working at a good office, and one day he came home not with gratitude, but with a coldness that dismantled her entire life. She was no longer part of the future he wanted. "You are not enough for me. You embarrass me." What he didn't know is that life always finds a way to turn the tables. Hello, my friends. I am Linda, and this is Linda Love Stories. I hope you enjoy this story. Rachel stretched her back, feeling the already crumpled hospital uniform cling slightly to her skin. It was 3 p.m, and the time clock announced the end of another 12-hour shift, but for her, the day was far from over. There was still the second job, some hours caring for a bedridden lady, which she squeezed in as she could between the tight breaks at the hospital. As she walked to the locker room, she mentally calculated how much she had saved that month. The numbers always came to the same place, almost enough for the material expenses and a few extra things for Adam's law school. 5 years ago, when Adam was accepted into the best law school in the region, his eyes shone in a way Rachel had never seen. He came from a family where no one had ever set foot in a university. His father, a bricklayer, retired due to disability after an accident, and his mother, a domestic worker, could barely help with the young couple's basic expenses. "We'll find a way," Rachel had said that night, as they celebrated with a bottle of cheap wine in the small apartment they rented. "I believe in you." What began as a temporary effort turned into the framework of their lives. Their combined salary was enough to pay the rent, the bills, the food, and Adam's college tuition. There wasn't enough for luxuries, but there was enough for the dream. Adam did his part. He studied with an almost obsessive dedication, achieved the best grades, and secured an unpaid internship in his second year that promised to turn into something better. On nights when they were both home, they sat at the kitchen table, he with his law books and she with her nursing course notes that she worked on during her few free hours. The apartment was too small to hold such big dreams, but they made it work. The thin walls let in the noise of the neighborhood, the bathroom frequently had plumbing issues, and the refrigerator made a strange noise that they had both learned to ignore. It was their home, imperfect, but theirs. "When I graduate," Adam used to say as he brewed strong coffee for another night of study, "we'll live in a place with big windows. You deserve to wake up with the sun streaming in through the window, not with the sound of the neighbor fixing motorcycles at 6 a.m. Rachel smiled, not so much at the promise but at the certainty in his eyes. While Adam saw the future, she saw the present, the dark circles under his eyes, the tension in his shoulders, the determination that sometimes bordered on obsession. "I don't need big windows," she replied. "I just need you not to give up." Years passed between double shifts and nights of study, between reheated coffee and deferred dreams, among whispered, "We can do it," on the toughest days. At Adam's graduation, Rachel cried like never before. Sitting in the audience, she watched her husband receive his law degree, the first in his family. Every extra shift was worth it, every penny counted bill, every night sleeping alone while he studied in the library. 2 weeks later, Adam was hired by a traditional law firm in the city. The salary was modest for a recent graduate, but represented the promise of growth. Finally, Rachel thought, they could breathe. Maybe she could cut back on a shift, maybe they could plan for a child, maybe it was time for her to think about college herself. But life at the firm turned out to be different from what Adam imagined. His boss, Gregory, descended from a lineage of traditional lawyers in the city. Tall, with impeccably groomed grey hair, he wore tailored suits and spoke with the confidence of someone whose capabilities had never been questioned. For him, the law was not just a profession but a family legacy. Adam quickly noticed the social divide between him and his colleagues. While they discussed international trips and family properties during lunch, he remained silent, aware of his neighborhood accent, his sale-bought clothes, and his ignorance about fine wines and art. Gregory was particularly relentless. "The law, my young man, is not just about knowledge but about presence, he would often say, adjusting his silk tie. Our clients pay for excellence in every aspect. Image counts, status counts. Adam exerted himself twice as hard. He arrived earlier, left later, and studied the cases exhaustively. When he received a minor case, he treated it as if it were the most important in the office. His determination impressed some colleagues, but it seemed to only irritate Gregory, as if Adam's effort highlighted some deficiency that the boss preferred to keep hidden. At home, Adam began to change. He bought better suits with his first salary, spending more than he should have. He enrolled in a public speaking course. He started to speak differently, choosing more sophisticated words. He began to criticize the apartment, the neighborhood, and old friendships. Rachel observed this transformation with a mix of pride and concern. It was natural to want to grow, but there was something in Adam's anxiety that seemed out of place, as if he were constantly trying to prove something not just to others, but to himself. "You don't need to change who you are," she said one night, after Adam complained about the simplicity of the dinner she had prepared after a double shift. "You've gotten this far by being yourself." Adam just shook his head. "You don't understand what it's like there, Rachel. It's not about legal knowledge, it's about belonging." 3 months after his hiring, Adam received his first significant opportunity to represent an important client at a preliminary hearing. Gregory would be present, but Adam would lead the initial presentation. He prepared meticulously, rehearsing arguments until late hours, reviewing precedents, memorizing statistics. On the morning of the hearing, he put on his best suit, still far from the standard of his colleagues, but the best he could afford. Rachel adjusted his tie and held his face in her hands. "You are ready for this," she said, with the same unwavering confidence from 5 years before. "You always have been." The hearing was scheduled for 2 in the afternoon. At 3:30, Rachel received a short message. "I will be late. Don't wait up for me." Around 10 at night, the apartment door swung open forcefully. Adam entered without looking around, his face worn, his posture rigid. He threw the briefcase on the floor and went straight to the counter, where he poured a generous glass of whiskey. He drank like someone who needed to erase something inside. When he turned around, his eyes held a hardness Rachel had never seen before. "I want a divorce." The words came out dry, raw. Rachel barely managed to react. "Adam, what happened?" He didn't respond immediately. He ran a hand through his hair and let out a short sigh, almost an incredulous laugh, but there was no humor in it. Gradually, he explained, the hearing that turned into a nightmare. Gregory interrupting, pointing out mistakes as if he were showing off an incompetent student, the comments laden with disdain, and, in the corridor, the phrase that followed him home, "You still bring the neighborhood with you." Adam didn't need many words to make the damage clear. His look said it all. Shame, humiliation, resentment. And it was as if, in that state, he had decided to cut everything that represented the life he was trying to leave behind, including Rachel. He walked around the apartment as if he were trapped there, restless, irritated with everything he saw. With the plain walls, the worn-out sofa, her crumpled uniform hanging on the chair. "I need to focus on my career, alone, without anything holding me back." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The coldness was worse. Rachel felt the blow. It was as if he were tearing 5 years of history apart with his own hands, trying to prove to himself that he was strong enough to go on alone, even if it meant hurting the person who loved him the most. She then understood that it wasn't about her. It was about the open wound that he didn't know where to place. Even so, it hurt. Because at that moment, Adam really seemed to believe that the problem was her, and she didn't recognize him anymore. But even in the midst of the cutting pain, Rachel managed to see beyond the words. She saw the fear in Adam's eyes, the desperation of someone who had been deeply hurt and was trying to transfer that pain. She recognized the pattern. the same one she saw in patients at the hospital when they received difficult diagnoses. The anger directed at those closest because they are the only ones safe enough to receive it. "Today, you are only hurting those who have always protected you," she said, surprisingly calm. "I will not stay here to be your emotional dumping ground." She grabbed her bag and left, leaving Adam alone with the weight of his own words. At her sister Catherine's house, Rachel finally broke down. Amid sobs, she recounted everything. The 5 years of sacrifice, the overtime hours, the bills always at the limit, the chronic fatigue that had become part of her. And in the end, the cruel rejection. "I always knew he would grow, evolve," she said, wiping away the tears. "But I never imagined that would mean leaving me behind." Catherine, 3 years older and always protective, contained her own anger to comfort her sister. "Nothing justifies what he is doing. But I think he's confused, Rachel, hurt. He's taking it out on you because he's insecure." At 3 a.m, Rachel's phone vibrated. It was Adam. Even with the fresh anger, she answered. "I made a mistake, a big mistake. I'm sorry." His voice was choked, as if he had been crying. "I'm coming over." "Don't come," she replied firmly. "Not today. We'll talk tomorrow. I need to breathe." He fell silent for a moment. "All right. Tomorrow, then." The next morning, Adam showed up early. He didn't seem to have slept. His eyes were red and swollen, with deep circles highlighting the pallor of his face. His hands trembled slightly as he sat in the small living room of Catherine's house. "I was humiliated at the hearing," he began, looking at the floor. "My boss said I lack structure, that I'm just a poor guy trying to pretend to be a lawyer. It felt as if everything I did, everything you did, was mocked." He paused, taking a deep breath. "And I took it out on you, because I knew you wouldn't leave. But you did, and I deserved it." Finally, he raised his eyes, facing Rachel. "I need help. I've already scheduled a psychologist. I don't want to be the man who hurt you yesterday." Rachel felt a lump in her throat. Part of her wanted to hug him, to say that everything would be okay. But another part, perhaps wiser, knew that going back immediately would be a mistake. Some wounds needed time to heal, and some lessons are only learned with distance. "I love you," she finally said. "But what you said yesterday, it affected something fundamental between us. You attacked exactly what we built together, and I don't think I trust you anymore." "I know, and I hate myself for it." "Don't hate yourself. Just do better." She didn't come home that day, nor in the following days. She stayed at her sister's house, using the time to reflect on the 5 years of their relationship. She noticed patterns she had ignored, like how Adam occasionally made comments about her simple job, how he had started avoiding introducing her to his new colleagues, how he was changing small habits to fit into a world that rejected him. Meanwhile, Adam truly sought help. He started therapy once a week. He talked to other lawyers who had found their place without losing their identity. He reflected on the true meaning of success. He had always thought it was an exaggeration that certain things could go to your head, but he ended up tasting his own medicine, and in the process, he hurt the one person who had been by his side the whole time. A month later, when Rachel finally decided to come home, she found a different apartment. Not physically. It was still the same small place as always. But the energy had changed. Adam had organized the space, put photos of them in simple but beautiful frames, and prepared a modest dinner. "I'm not trying to buy your forgiveness," he said when she came in. "I just want to show that I'm trying." They talked for hours that night. Not just about the incident, but about the previous years, about expectations, about the future. They established clear boundaries and agreed on how to handle frustrations and external pressures. "I almost destroyed the most important thing in my life because of what a bitter and insecure man said," Adam reflected. "I almost threw away 5 years of partnership for a moment of weakness." "It wasn't just a moment," Rachel gently corrected. It was pressure that had been building, and we have to talk about it, always. The rebuilding was gradual. Adam continued at the same office, but with a new attitude. He stopped trying to mimic the mannerisms of his privileged colleagues and started turning his background into an advantage. He understood working-class clients in a way other lawyers couldn't. Rachel reduced one shift at the hospital, using the free time to start a technical course in administration. She loved her vocation as a nurse but wanted something with more stable hours for the future. Together they began to plan their financial future more carefully, now that they both contributed. 6 months after the incident, Adam came home with news. He had been invited to take a position at a smaller firm specializing in labor cases. The salary was comparable, but the environment promised to be more welcoming and in line with his values. 2 years later, they finally moved to a larger apartment, not in a luxury condominium, but in a pleasant neighborhood with large windows that let the morning sun in, just as Adam had promised. Rachel now worked as an administrative coordinator at the same hospital on a business schedule without the need for double shifts. And on an ordinary Tuesday morning, Rachel came out of the bathroom holding the positive test. There were no desperate tears or dramatic shock, just a shy, almost teenage smile that she couldn't contain. Adam was organizing the table when he saw her standing in the doorway. "Is everything okay?" he asked, already sensing there was something different about her. Rachel handed over the test without a speech, without preparation. He looked, blinked, and a gentle laugh escaped him, the kind of laugh that only appears when life surprises you in a good way. "So? It's real," he murmured, pulling her by the waist, still smiling as if he were discovering the world for the first time. "It's real," she confirmed. They stood there, embraced in the middle of the room, surrounded by the noise of the washing machine, the lingering smell of coffee in the air, and a peace they never imagined they would reach one day. Adam ran his hand through her hair, in that gentle gesture that said more than any old apology. "You know, looking at all this now, I'm so glad we didn't give up. That we grew together. That we made it work in our own way." Rachel smiled, calm, mature, whole. "Me too. I think we finally understood that to love someone is to choose that person on good days, but it's also to choose to act with maturity on bad days." Adam slowly nodded, as someone who recognizes a truth lived through experience. "And we chose. No epic scenes, no grand speeches. Just two people who survived who they were, chose who they wanted to be, and now they were harvesting, together, a new beginning." If you enjoyed the story, please leave a comment with a rating from 1 to 5 to show how much you liked it. Also, watch the video that is now appearing on your screen. See you soon.